The chandeliers of their Bel Air estate sparkled with unnatural stillness that night. Outside, the California breeze flirted gently with the olive trees, rustling their silver leaves beneath a moonlit sky. But inside, behind the walls of curated luxury and cinematic perfection, tension clung to the air like smoke. The estate was silent, eerily so, as though it held its breath alongside her. Jennifer Lopez stood at the foot of the spiral staircase, barefoot, her skin kissed with goosebumps not from cold, but from dread. She wore an ivory satin robe loosely tied around her waist, the same one Ben had gifted her 2 years ago on a rainy Tuesday, back when they had still laughed about nothing and whispered secrets like teenagers. But tonight, her secrets were heavier. In her right hand, she held her phone, not texting, not scrolling, not calling, recording. Not for the world, not for social media, for herself. The last few weeks had passed in a haze of sharp-edged silence and artificial small talk. Ben had grown distant, not the charming artist lost in a new role or script, but a man retreating from something dark. His moods were colder, his eyes sharper. He had started sleeping in the second bedroom because of the snoring. He had begun taking calls outside, at odd hours, always stepping into shadows. He had started lying. And Jennifer, woman, mother, performer, survivor, had begun watching. She pressed record. "He's not the man I married." "Not anymore," she whispered, barely audible, as though afraid the house itself might hear. "There are things I can't explain, things I've seen, things I wasn't meant to see. But I saw them, and I can unsee them." Upstairs, a door clicked shut. Jennifer froze. She quickly stopped the recording and tucked the phone under the sofa cushion, beneath the silk throw pillows chosen by a designer whose name she could no longer remember. Her pulse thudded in her ears. She moved swiftly to the kitchen, where she poured a glass of white wine she had no intention of drinking. Her hands, always so steady under stage lights and award speeches, trembled slightly now. Footsteps echoed on the stairs, slow, deliberate. Ben appeared, phone still to his ear, dressed in black jeans and a crumpled shirt. His brow furrowed when he saw her standing there. "Still up?" he asked, voice low and worn. "I couldn't sleep," she replied, turning the glass in her hands. "Too much on my mind." He nodded absently, clearly distracted. "Work stuff." She didn't answer right away. She studied him, the way he avoided eye contact, the tension in his shoulders, the twitch at the corner of his mouth. "No," she said quietly. "Not work. You." Ben's posture stiffened. "You've been disappearing," she said, stepping closer, keeping her voice even. "And don't tell me again that you're just driving to clear your head. I stopped believing that weeks ago." A shadow passed over his face. "You're overthinking it," he said. "You always do this when you're anxious." Jennifer didn't flinch. "Maybe. Or maybe you're gaslighting me again." His eyes flashed. "Jesus, Jen. Where do you go after midnight?" she asked again, sharper this time. "Why did you lock the guest house 2 weeks ago and tell the staff it's under renovation? You didn't even file a permit." Ben opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Jennifer leaned forward, her voice now barely a breath. "You forget. I know the way you lie. You told the exact same story to Anna in 2021. You even used the same excuse." A muscle in his jaw twitched. She stepped back and turned, walking toward the stairs. But just before leaving the room, she said, "I'm going to the guest house in the morning. If there's nothing to hide, then there's nothing to worry about." He didn't respond. But the silence that followed her up the stairs wasn't empty, it was packed with unspoken truths and unraveling illusions. The next morning, just before sunrise, the staff found her robe folded neatly on the bed. Her closet was half empty. The diamond-studded wedding ring, once flashed proudly on red carpets, now sat alone on the edge of the bathroom sink. The Bentley was gone from the garage. Ben Affleck woke up alone. And though he didn't show it, he already knew what the world would soon discover. Jennifer Lopez had walked out. And she wasn't coming back. The guest house stood at the edge of the property, nestled behind a wall of meticulously groomed hedges and shadowed by towering pines. From a distance, it looked like an artist's retreat, small, elegant, with frosted glass windows and a wraparound deck shaded by bougainvillea. It had once been Jennifer's sanctuary, a place for songwriting, breath work, and the rare stillness fame seldom afforded. But now it felt haunted. Jennifer had always noticed small things. That morning, before she left the main house for good, she had stood on the guest house steps and stared at the newly installed keypad lock. It was out of place, too modern, too secure, too unnecessary for a space that no one had supposedly used in over 6 months. Ben had claimed it was being renovated. She entered the code. She had overheard him once, weeks ago, murmuring it during a call he thought she couldn't hear. She remembered every digit. The lock clicked. The door creaked open. Inside, the air was cool and dry. Lights flickered on automatically, soft, ambient, almost theatrical. At first, it seemed ordinary. A throw blanket. A few unopened packages of protein bars. A guitar resting against the wall. The kind of half-used living space that could belong to a tired actor or an assistant on call. But Jennifer moved slowly, knowing better. Then she saw it. In the corner of the room was a small table, and on it, an unlabeled hard drive next to a black notebook. She opened it, hands stiff. The first page had Ben's handwriting. She recognized it immediately, but the words weren't journal entries or creative scribbles. They were names, locations, symbols she didn't recognize. The next few pages were filled with strange timelines, crossed-out paragraphs, and an address in Brooklyn circled in red ink. Then came something worse, printed screenshots, seemingly from surveillance footage. Jennifer's own face, leaving her dance studio, shopping with Emmy, having lunch in Malibu. They were dated, logged. The final page in the notebook was a single phrase, written in red marker. She's waking up. Jennifer felt her breath hitch. Her pulse raced. Her vision blurred for a moment with rage. No, with betrayal. She wasn't just being watched. She was being tracked. Footsteps outside. She froze. The security camera on the ceiling clicked softly. She hadn't noticed it before. Someone was watching her right now. She didn't run. She walked out calmly, taking the notebook and the drive. As she turned the corner back toward the main house, she saw Ben's SUV pulling into the driveway. He hadn't expected her to be out here this early. Their eyes met across the lawn. He didn't smile. Neither did she. Jennifer lifted the notebook ever so slightly, a silent warning. His lips parted, but she didn't wait to hear what he had to say. She got in her car and drove away. By noon, she had checked into a hotel in West Hollywood under an alias. She sent a single message to her manager. Reschedule everything. I need a week. No press. No interviews. By evening, rumors swirled online. Paparazzi had spotted her leaving the estate with 2 bags and no ring. Fan accounts dissected her last Instagram post, a cryptic quote about silence and freedom. TikTok was ablaze with speculation. What did Ben do? But none of them knew what Jennifer now held. Not yet. She stared at the notebook on the hotel bed, still half afraid to open it again. But part of her already understood. This wasn't just about infidelity. It wasn't even about love. It was about something far darker. And she wasn't sure she was ready to face it. The light of the hotel room lamp bled across the notebook's pages like a slow-burning fire. Jennifer sat cross-legged on the bed, wrapped in a plush robe that didn't quite shield her from the chills crawling up her back. The city hummed outside, normal, oblivious. But in here, everything had changed. She stared at the hard drive beside her laptop, its blank shell daring her to look deeper. 1,000 thoughts pulsed behind her eyes. Was this a movie pitch? A psychological experiment? A twisted rehearsal for a new role? Or was it something real? She took a breath, clicked the drive in. The folder structure was simple. Dates. Names. Footage. The first few clips were unremarkable. Silent black and white footage of her doing ordinary things. Parking. Grocery shopping. Practicing a dance routine. But what shocked her wasn't that the videos existed. It was the angles. The views came from elevated corners, perfectly still. Security feeds, but not from places she had installed. She recognized her private studio from angles she never knew were monitored. And then she found it. /home_surveillance/guesthouse/. The video was recent, less than 48 hours old. She clicked play. There he was, Ben, inside the guest house. Not alone. A man sat across from him. Slender build, dark glasses, gray hoodie. His face was turned just enough to avoid the camera. No more delays, the man said. The voice was distorted, filtered. I told you, she's asking questions. Ben replied, his tone sharp, low. And what do you plan to do about it? A pause. Whatever I have to. Jennifer paused the video, fingers trembling. Who was that man? Why was Ben even recording this conversation? Then she saw it. In the corner of the frame, another camera, one not aligned with the guesthouse system. She realized it with a sinking feeling. Ben wasn't the one recording this. Someone else was. Someone had cameras in his secret room. And that someone had given her the hard drive. She leaned back against the headboard, adrenaline pulsing in her chest. She wasn't just a woman walking out on a broken marriage. She was now part of something hidden, orchestrated. A knock on the hotel room door jolted her upright. She froze. Another knock. Firmer this time. She slid off the bed and approached slowly, heart hammering. Through the peephole, she saw a man in a charcoal suit, clean-shaven, holding what looked like a FedEx envelope. No name badge. No package. She didn't answer. "Miss Lopez," he called through the door. "You don't know me, but we need to talk. You've seen the guest house footage, I assume." Jennifer backed away, quiet as a breath. He knocked again, softer. Ben wasn't working alone. Then silence. Moments later, the sound of retreating footsteps echoed down the hallway. She rushed to the peephole again. The man was gone. But in his place, wedged under her door, was a business card. Unmarked. Only a number. And 2 words handwritten in black ink. "Don't trust him." Hours later, Jennifer sat in the dark, curtains closed, phone powered off. She didn't know who to call. Her team couldn't know, not yet. Her mother would panic. Her kids were safe in New York, and she would keep it that way. But what scared her most wasn't the footage, or the voices, or even the guest house. It was the realization that Ben hadn't looked surprised when she found the notebook. He had expected her to find it, and that meant the real game had only just begun. Jennifer returned to the Bel Air estate under the cloak of early dawn. She'd left the hotel in a rental car, with her hair hidden under a baseball cap and sunglasses masking her swollen eyes. There was no paparazzi yet, not this early, and she knew the staff wouldn't arrive until 8 a.m. She had 2 hours. 2 hours to retrieve what she'd spent the last 6 hours obsessing over. She had remembered something. A fragment, a detail, buried in the cluttered attic of her memory. The small, fireproof closet Ben had installed beneath his office. Back when they'd merged their lives, his movies, her music, their chaos, he'd said it was for contracts and legal stuff. She hadn't thought twice about it. They were in love then. Trust ran deep. But now? Now she was shaking as she picked the lock. It took 20 minutes and a credit card she wouldn't be using again. When the latch finally gave, her heart was thundering. She opened the closet door and blinked. Inside was a safe, but not just a safe, a false wall. Clever. Professional. The kind of design used by people who had something very important, or very dangerous, to hide. She pressed her palm against the back panel. It shifted, ever so slightly. Behind it lay 2 large binders, 3 unmarked thumb drives, and a small velvet pouch. She didn't touch the pouch yet. Instead, she opened one of the binders. It was filled with photographs. Not just of her, of celebrities, producers, executives. All time-stamped. All annotated. Jennifer flipped faster, scanning names she recognized. Reese. Clooney. Gaga. Dwayne. Zendaya. Names scrawled beneath like they were data points, not people. On page 17, her blood went cold. A picture of her with her children, dated 4 months ago, with a sticky note labeled. Intercept failed. Target unaware. She dropped the binder. What was this? A hit list? Blackmail? Something worse? She grabbed the drives, the pouch, and the other binder. Whatever this was, she couldn't stay long enough to read it all here. But as she turned to leave, she heard a sound she hadn't expected, the front gate opening. Ben's SUV. No. No. He wasn't supposed to be back this early. She moved quickly, slipping through the hallway and down the back service stairwell. She made it to the garage just as the front door opened. "Jennifer." Ben called, his voice echoing. She didn't answer. She ducked behind a pillar, watched through the side mirror as he entered the living room. She bolted for the side door, adrenaline surging like fire through her veins. Once back in the car, she drove. Not back to the hotel, that was compromised. Not to a friend, she didn't know who she could trust. She drove to Malibu. There was a beach house she hadn't used in nearly a year. Off-grid. No staff. No cameras. Only the waves. There, at last, she opened the velvet pouch. Inside, a silver locket. She recognized it immediately. It had belonged to Ben's mother. He had said it was one of the few things he kept from his childhood. Jennifer pried it open. Inside, instead of a picture, was a microchip. She stared at it, realizing 2 things at once. Ben had kept it hidden, not for memory's sake, but because it was worth hiding, and someone had gone through an awful lot of trouble to make sure she found it. She placed the chip next to her laptop, and it booted a program without asking. Her screen filled with a black interface and a single blinking cursor. Then, access granted. Node 8, neural integration files. She had no idea what she was looking at. Folders. data logs. Encrypted files labeled things like beta host observations, synthetic emotional mapping, target sync disruption. Jennifer stared, heart pounding. Then the screen shifted again. Incoming message. A window popped up. Live video. A woman appeared, older, sharp-eyed, wearing a navy turtleneck in what looked like an underground lab. "You don't know me, but I've been watching for some time," she said calmly. "And if you're reading this, then I failed to stop Ben in time." Jennifer's stomach dropped. "I worked with him," the woman continued. 10 years ago, on a DARPA-funded project. He was part of a group exploring cognitive emotional mapping, replicating human behavior through predictive AI. The goal was noble at first, to simulate grief for therapy, to help soldiers returning from trauma. But then Ben started pushing for modifications. Jennifer leaned in. He didn't want to simulate human emotion. He wanted to manipulate it. In real people. The woman looked down. "I left the project. So did most of the team. But he kept going. And I believe you were the first full test." Jennifer gasped. "No, not you," the woman corrected, as if hearing her. "Your relationship." She clicked a button. A timeline appeared. Every major emotional event in their 2-year marriage was plotted on a graph. He created you as a variable in his hypothesis. You were the experiment, Jennifer. Jennifer sat frozen. She wasn't even sure she was breathing. Her phone rang. It was Ben. She let it ring. Then silence. And finally, a text. "We need to talk. Before it all comes out." 2 days later, the world stopped spinning for a moment. The headlines hit like lightning. J.Lo walks out, inside the final days of Hollywood's golden couple. Ben Affleck accused of secret surveillance by Lopez insider. Breaking. FBI involved in A-list privacy breach investigation. Jennifer Lopez sat alone in a private suite above Sunset Boulevard, the city glittering below like broken glass. Her hands, steady now, rested on a black leather folder holding everything she had gathered. The notebooks, the drives, the chip, the video messages. She hadn't slept in nearly 36 hours. She didn't need to. She was finally wide awake. The knock on the door came precisely at 5 p.m. A familiar face entered, Savannah Clark, one of the most trusted interviewers in the country, known for her calm tone and surgical questions. Her team followed, setting up lights, cameras, audio. Everything had to look natural. But there was nothing natural about this. "I want to go on the record," Jennifer said calmly. Savannah raised a brow. "No pre-interview? No edits? No PR filters? Just me." The interview began with familiar questions: the marriage, the split, the decision to leave. Jennifer answered with poise, but behind her eyes burned something deeper than sorrow. Then came the moment. Savannah leaned forward slightly. "There are rumors about surveillance, about secret data. Can you confirm or deny that?" Jennifer held her breath. And then she didn't deny. She didn't confirm. She pulled out the black folder and placed it on the table. "I can do better," she said. "I can show you." The cameras kept rolling as Savannah opened the folder. Photos, maps, transcripts. And then Jennifer spoke. "I was monitored, watched, not by strangers, not by the press, by someone I trusted with everything." The interview room felt suddenly colder. She reached for a USB drive and handed it to Savannah. "You'll want to see the footage. But be careful. There are layers to this." "Why now?" Savannah asked gently. "Why come forward?" Jennifer looked into the camera for the first time. Her voice was low but steady. "Because silence is complicity. And for 2 years, I thought I was living a love story. But I was inside an experiment." The team froze. Even Savannah looked shaken. Jennifer continued. "Ben wasn't trying to fix a broken man. He was trying to build the perfect one. Predictable emotions, synthetic forgiveness, calculated vulnerability. Our relationship was never just about us. It was data." Savannah asked, "Do you believe you were emotionally manipulated?" "I know I was." Jennifer pulled out a printed emotional timeline, color-coded with dates, mood swings, public appearances, even their most viral red carpet photos. Every time we trended, correlated with peaks in his testing data. She wiped a tear, but it was more from rage than sorrow. Every public kiss, every private fight, every carefully leaked story. It was scripted, calibrated. Savannah leaned in. "So what happens now?" Jennifer's lips tightened. "Now the world gets to choose what to believe. But I've already made my choice." The interview aired the next morning. Uncut, unfiltered. Within hours, it was the most viewed clip in the platform's history. Hollywood was on fire. Celebrities began speaking out, some with support, others with quiet denials. Conspiracy theories erupted across social media. Fans dissected every past interview, every photograph of Ben and Jen looking too perfect or too strained. And then came the bombshell. A federal warrant was leaked online, showing a joint task force investigation into emotional experimentation, unauthorized biometric tracking, and psychological data harvesting. Ben Affleck disappeared from public view. His team issued a single statement. Mr. Affleck denies all allegations and will cooperate fully. At this time, he is undergoing private treatment. But Jennifer knew better, because just after the interview aired, she received one final message. A letter. Unmarked envelope. No postage. Just left at the gate of her Malibu house. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten in Ben's familiar script. You weren't supposed to wake up. But maybe, part of me wanted you to. Jennifer folded the letter, her hands surprisingly still. There was no going back to normal. Not now. Not ever. But she felt something she hadn't in weeks. Control. Not over the narrative, not over the system. Over herself. Epilogue, 6 weeks later. She returned to the stage for the first time since the split, not as a performer, but as a speaker. A guest of the Global Women's Summit in Barcelona. She wore no makeup. No diamonds. No smile. Just power. She told her story. Not the Hollywood version. The real one. She didn't name names. She didn't need to. The message echoed louder than any tabloid headline. We teach our daughters how to love. But we forget to teach them how to recognize when they're being programmed to. The room erupted in applause. Somewhere, in some dark room with no name, a system blinked and shut itself off. And Jennifer Lopez walked off stage, not as a wife, not as an icon, not even as a survivor. As herself. Finally, just herself.